Hello and welcome back to Dev Game Club, a weekly podcast in which two veteran game developers look at games from the past to discuss their relevance and impact today. I'm Brett Duville, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, a man who spotted the cave's entrance and vowed to return victorious.
Tim Longo.
That introduction that happens over the opening credits, which you may not have seen a lot of times, but it does change every time.
Over the opening credits. Well, I'm trying to think.
When he's walking into the dungeon over the sands at the beginning.
Oh no, I haven't seen it other than
the once,
maybe twice. No,
yeah.
because I'm playing on the Steam Deck, so I just suspended. So I didn't actually close the app down.
You actually haven't closed the app down. Okay.
No, I played over 2 or 3 days, but yeah, it was.
Yes, you probably only saw it once. Yeah,
and we'll see it next time though. Now
I realized I hadn't actually even noticed that. Talking about things that I'm still learning about this game.
Wow,
I had not noticed that because I just skip it every time. Like I haven't seen it in years until I was like, oh, I should use that for the intro.
And interesting. That's crazy. That then, yeah. So what are we?
Of course. Anyway, so we're talking about Spelunky, a game I've spent many hours playing. We are playing the 2012 version. I do think of this as the sort of canonical Spelunky, even though there was an earlier freeware and actually open source, I believe, version. I think you could actually just get the source from 2008. And it's useful because I know somebody who's gone through and figured out basically how the level construction algorithm works. So we'll talk a little bit about that.
You know a guy?
Yeah, I know a guy. Now I'm like, what's his name? Tiny
Brett
Subversions.
Duville.
Yeah, no, it's not me. I have not looked through the code. I actually didn't know it was open source. I thought this guy had reverse Darius Kazemi as somebody who has worked through that and figured out how it works. Anyway, this is a game. The version we're playing came out in 2012. Like I said, it's off of an earlier version of the game, which was in 2008, was free, but this commercial XBLA version came out in 2012 in that summer of arcade, which was also a year that contained Fez on the same platform. So we're not going to go through all the games from 2012 again, because we've done that quite recently, just a few games ago, even though that was a few months ago when we talked about Fez. We're not going to relist the games because it was so recently. Go back and listen to our first Fez episode if you want to hear. But yeah, this was made by Derek Yu and Andy Hall, who did the programming or did some of the programming. I think Derek did a lot of it himself. Derek is known as Mossmouth, or that's his company. I don't know. I kind of think of them interchangeably. And this was his first commercial game, and it's a labor of love. He's written a book about the experience of writing it. He has since written a sequel, and then has come out with a third game called UFO 50, which is a collection of 50 years of a fake game developing game studios efforts, which is wild to me. I have not even haven't opened it. I haven't bought it. I should pick it up and start dabbling, because it is like this imaginary output of this imaginary studio, and I think it's 50 games. Like, it's wild to think of there being 50 indie games in one package like that. You really got to do something different to stand out these days.
Yeah, serious.
So, this is your first time playing. It's hard for me to know where to start with Spelunky because I have spent so much time in Spelunky.
Where does Brett end? And
I'm still not that good at
it. I believe it. Yeah. So, I don't know. I think it's, I guess a little bit kind of pun intended. It's become a legendary game. I guess a little bit like Fez in a way. And the fact that it was 2012 as well, I think, is telling, because go back and listen to those episodes. We kicked this off with Fez appropriately. So, and I think we definitely were talking. I know we were talking about that time, that era, and how indie games were influencing so much and kind of coming out. And I'm actually happy to hear that it was the same year, because you play this game and you kind of can see it. You can see why the legend is here. And I will fully admit, I mean, I I always knew that this was weirdly this game that you play every day and have over 1,000 hours in or something, legitimately. But I was
Yeah,
always like,
that's not even counting the hours I played it on the handheld, the Vita, which is
oh
how I
yeah,
first
right.
played
So
this.
like you must
I
be,
probably
yeah,
have
you must.
another couple hundred hours on that at least.
So yeah, I mean that's just astounding. Like that's World of Warcraft numbers for me, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
and that's a live game.
yeah.
That's like the point of that
This
game.
game has not changed, right, in quite some time. Yeah,
And I
yeah,
think that is significant. That is a significant statement. And I think I know I underestimated the game. I was unfair to the game. I wasn't coming in with like terrible expectations or anything because I knew it was really really popular and kind of infamous. But as everyone already knows, I'm not a huge platforming fan, and I'm also not a huge roguelike fan because of the usual lack of progress.
right.
I think
But the
it's
progress
not.
is the knowledge, Tim.
I know, and that's and I have a point about that later. That
Okay.
because I'm also playing two Souls games at the same time with this game, so it's on my mind, right? The knowledge is power, knowledge is point, kind of thing. So, and I see that in this game. So I definitely it was underserved in my mind. I don't think I was really fair in my assumptions, for sure. I know I wasn't. But I think to be honest, like the cutesy style, I was like, okay, it's one of those,
Yeah,
and okay, I see what this is probably going to be like and play like. I was like, yeah, and immediately it does live up to those expectations of being a really good platformer, really polished. I like a lot about everything from the character animations are really stellar, and detailed. There's a lot of things to like about it, and it feels good to play. I like it better than some of the other platforming we played, for instance, on this series. Um, but then you start really playing it, and I'm
yeah,
not even that far, and I can see, oh, wait a second, this is just it's not just another platformer. There's and of course this is like everyone's yelling at their at the podcast is
podcast.
like,
Yeah,
of course you dummy. And I again made false assumptions about it, but so it's like to be a good platformer is one thing. We've talked about that with Mario, we've talked about that with all of the other ones we've played, but to do that really well and polished and precisely, because as I think we've talked about, like with Cave Story, or Fez, like I prefer the more precise, platforming approach, and this one hits it for me.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
This is definitely that.
yeah, and it does it really well. But then also the thing that I just obviously underappreciated, and I'm only scratching the surface on, is just the procedural and dynamic aspects of it. I knew it was a roguelike, but I think I didn't know how it was a roguelike, and
Mm-hmm.
how far he took it. Because it's like, okay, yeah, so random levels, probably some blocks, sections that he's, Diablo style smushing together, and there's probably some abilities along the way, and I was kind of like putting Dead Cells in there a little bit somehow. But then like the depth to which it goes procedural, the numbers of things that I've seen, and I haven't even played that long already, um, and the sort of like we'll talk separately, I think, about the sort of the death loop of it all.
Yeah, right.
But the just the variety, even that I've seen in the short time I've played, is like, wow, if it goes further than this, what I've seen so far could make a perfectly fine game, and I
Yeah,
know from you that you're still finding new things. So, and I think that we talk a lot about the concept of sandbox game design, and that isn't really a typical thing that you find in platformers. At least for me, I haven't found it very often. Platformers are often like very level design focused, right? Very much like, here's the challenge, you're going to beat this challenge. That's kind of Mario's bread and butter, with a few exceptions of some of the games, I think. But 1-1 is a level that you can memorize. But to make something that's still precise, still fun to play, still addictive, still challenging, sometimes almost too much so, but also procedural, uh, I just
Yeah.
just don't know what to
Hard,
say.
hard to know. Yeah. So I mean, it's funny that you describe it as sort of like, or your initial impression was like, oh, maybe it's like Diablo, and it actually is. That's actually how it's put together.
Okay, okay.
But it is beyond that, or maybe Diablo had this too. I don't think so, but there is sort of an evolution step. So where he'll randomly put and take blocks out. Um, and then he has some that are like you
So like
can't.
a fine tuning
Yeah, there's
the
like a
seed. Or...
second. Yeah, there's a second pass where he basically does a certain amount of like random mutations of the level.
Hmm.
So like just adding elements or not. So so it really is just like it is a 4x4 grid that's filled in sort of two passes. Like one pass is, okay, I'm going to lay them out in this area, and that ensures that there is a path to from the start to the exit without needing to use a bomb.
Wait,
Like
what do you mean by 4x4 for the whole level?
for each level, it's
Oh, really?
four
There's only
across, and there's only 16 blocks.
really?
Yeah, yeah,
Wow. Oh, I see. So then you're saying there's the sort of foundational 16 blocks
right.
on the first pass, and then
Right,
he does
right, right.
another
But those
pass that
those are
kind of
random, right? I mean, those are
yeah,
also
yeah, yeah,
random, right? Yeah.
yeah.
So, but they're coming from like a bucket of pieces, of designed, explicitly designed pieces, and it's like, well, you have to have one of these from this set on the top row, because
Yeah.
there's got to be a way to get from the top row to the second row,
Right. So it is
etc.
a rule
And
set.
then yeah, so there's a rule set which is like, and I think there's also like something about making it so you have to zigzag
Yeah.
across. You can't just go straight down for the most part.
Hmm.
And then different levels are different in how they approach like that. The jungle is sort of less restricted in that way. It's not always a zigzag, but there's a good reason for that. Because you still want to zigzag even if you don't have to, which we'll probably talk about next session because there's something you're not aware of. And then the ice caves are
Chances
very.
are,
The ice
yes.
caves are, yeah, you don't know. And then there's the ice caves, which are the next level after that, and they have their own set of rules, but it's all still very similar. It's like pieces, and just how the pieces are laid out or changed from level to level. And in that one, there's not a lot of connective tissue. That's really kind of the most dangerous area because it's a bottomless pit, so you can fall and then just fall forever and die. Because there's not a lot of ground everywhere. Like there's no bottom at the bottom. There is a level, you may not have seen it yet in the jungle, but there's also a version. I mean, technically you could survive it, but there is a version of the bottom section of that which is water. So there's like islands, and you can jump and get to the islands, but it's all water underneath, and it does have a bottom, but it's like filled with piranhas and a giant piranha, that you can also experience. But anyway, yeah. So it has this algorithm of like pick the starting pieces, and do some layout, and then mutate those pieces. So add some things, maybe add some blocks, take away some blocks, generate where the gems and gold pieces go, and things like that. That you can see, and then there are some things that you may not be able to see without a special item,
Right.
in addition to that. So yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot going on.
So it's like, yeah, so it's sort of like macro and micro in a way.
Yeah.
It's like there's the macro structure of the level, and then the sort of like that's funny. I was just helping my kid out with a visualization of data
Uh-huh.
through Google Sheets, and I discovered jittering, I think it's
Mm-hmm.
called. Where you take it's a plot, it's a graph plot, but you want to show numbers of things that are on top of the same spot. You want to show how many of them there are there,
Right.
in a more clear way. So you add a random number jitter onto it, so they kind of are all clustered. So it
Right.
feels like that in a way. It's like you take the foundation and then he does a jitter on it to make it just interesting and different enough, so it kind of has that more randomness to it.
Yeah.
That's really, yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, I think the thing, as anyone who listens to the podcast has listened to the podcast before, heard me talk about level design. And though I'm not a big platformer, I do appreciate them. And but one of the, like I said earlier, one of the biggest things that I've appreciated about them is the precise level design challenges that the traditional platformers will throw at you. And I think when I realized what this game was, because again, I didn't realize, I think, how far it went in the procedural random rogue elements of it. Like, yeah, sure, the dungeon's different every time. Sure, I get you. But it's like, oh no. So we said it in pre-show, and you mentioned earlier, sort of like knowledge is the real power. The concept of a platformer, I don't know if he was the first one to do this, or maybe there's others that have done it that I don't know about, but the concept of a platformer where the level, you can't know the level.
Yeah.
You have to know everything else to be successful.
Yeah.
Is kind of like this fork in the road, like brilliant, mind-blowing concept where it's like, what if level design, like traditional level, he's still doing level design, it's just in a different method.
Yeah.
It makes me kind of think of Minecraft a little bit too, right? Like, how do
Yeah.
you make an interesting cave structure in Minecraft?
Right. Yeah.
That seems, convincing and interesting and fun to explore in, but still procedural. It's like, yeah, video games are
I
magic.
think in this case, you do it with a lot of verbs, so that there's a lot of ways to overcome the challenges. We were talking a little bit. We'll talk more about the inventory systems, which I grant to you are maybe a little opaque. It's very much a discovery game, of course, and that's
that's fine.
Also the theme, right? It's so it all makes a certain amount of sense and is cohesive in that way. But the sort of base abilities of the if you have to do the tutorial when you start playing, and that really teaches you the basics that you're guaranteed to have. Like, you can jump 2 blocks, and hang, if need be, or to get up and over a thing. You can run over a thing that's a 1 block gap, but you can run past a 1 into a 2nd block gap and catch yourself, if there's something to catch yourself on, and then just a million different things that can kill you, of course, that you have to kind of learn. Like the whip has timing. I mean, the whip is a beautiful thing with this game, in that it's not instant. It takes that moment of wind up with the whip. And so even your attack verb just has a little bit of skill, a little bit of just like, got to know how this is timed, right? And every part of this game is that. Like, the tiki traps shoot out their little spikes, and it's sort of like they stick out a little bit and then they jab, and it's not, it's not as soon as you step next to them. It's like, oh, actually, and I've had to do this where it's like, I had to fall next to a tiki trap, and if you jump up fast enough, you're okay.
Right.
But it's like a game that requires that constant level of intense focus that, I can tell days where I'm not going to have a good Spelunky run, because it's like, oh man, I just did the dumbest thing. It's because I just really wasn't fully focused. You have to, you can't do anything else while you're playing Spelunky. You literally can't even be thinking about something else, and it's that, I think, ultimately, because you asked me about this before, and I was like, oh, I don't actually know. But I think actually the thing about Spelunky is I can only be doing Spelunky when I'm doing Spelunky.
Yeah.
If I'm reading a book or whatever, I can stop and I can pick up my phone and check my email if the notification comes in or something like that. I can't even do that with Spelunky. Like, I just have to do Spelunky until I'm done with the daily that day. Because if I stop paying attention to it, then getting back into it, if I'm deeper into the game, I just do, and it's like, oh, okay, I looked away, and now probably will die a really stupid way really soon.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Because I don't know if I asked did I ask on air? But I asked Brett at pre-show, at least, like,
yeah.
I was going to ask, like, why this game, because Brett's taste in games is wide and varied, and there's a lot of different genres that you like. why this one is the 1,200-hour game or whatever, 1,500-hour game.
Yeah,
And
lots.
that's a really cool answer to me, because, like, people play games for all sorts of reasons, and it makes me, to be honest, it makes me think a little bit of. I guess I didn't think about this, but and we call on him a lot because we watch him play games at a very high level. But I think of Kaon
Yeah, sure.
playing Mega Man
Yeah,
or
yeah,
playing Contra, and yes, he needs to devote his attention to it, but also he plays at a level where it's a memorization, like his muscle memory is such a part of him where he can. I'm not saying he could read a book at the same time,
yeah,
or,
yeah, yeah.
but he streams, he
Yeah, he
talks to
talks and
us.
streams. Yeah, I could not talk and play Spelunky,
No, no, but I
not
think that that's.
successfully. Right.
But my point is, like, with Super Mario Brothers or a traditional platformer, you can get to a level like Kaon gets to with a Mega Man game, and it's not, he can still make mistakes, but he knows it so well because it is consistent, and it's
Yeah,
gonna be largely, especially those classic games, are going to be the same. That's why one Mario 1-1, it's like people can do it with their eyes closed,
yeah.
or whatever. They can do it with
The dance
some.
pads or yeah,
Yeah, exactly, or a saxophone,
yeah, yeah.
or
Right, right.
whatever it is. But I love this concept that with something like Spelunky, it's still a really excellent platformer, but you can't take your eyes off the ball
Nope. No,
because you
and
don't know
often
what's.
often the things that will kill me will be like I was so focused on some other thing I was worried about that I did something I stood right next to something like a tiki trap or whatever and like didn't even see the tiki trap because I was so focused on this other thing
Yeah,
that I was worried about.
yeah,
And so it's like always having like focusing on everything, and being completely focused is, and I'll just
yeah,
be like, I can't, I'll literally say to myself, I didn't even see it.
yeah.
Like I
Right,
literally did not see that because I was so focused on the thing, below it. And like, there's some things that happen later levels. There's some challenges that are just like, they're very difficult to avoid quickly. Like if you didn't see it and didn't deal with it, then it's probably going to kill you. Like you just, you don't have the kind of time. I don't have the time to react. So I have to plan for it, and see it. And sometimes I'll even see it, but then be thinking about the next thing and forget because I get so focused
right.
on the next thing. And it's that like level of constantly humbling me of like, no, you didn't focus on it in the right way. Like you let go of something, some important information. I don't know, it puts me very in touch with like that one, like it's meditative in that way of like it's
Yeah,
pure focus meditation, and I think that's part of what, it's funny because it's a game I totally bounced off of because of my expectation from all other sorts of games. When I first played it, I was like, I wanted to replay the level I just died in because I want to know how to get through it. you know
right.
and it's not that game even remotely. It's like, nope, that's gone forever. You don't there's you can't get the seed. You can't choose to play that level again. I gather that there was an earlier version of the game in the 2008 version that you could actually author levels and replay your own levels. So there was an editor in it. But the sort of procedurally generated, is never, you've never been able to go back and play it again. Unless you had, I guess you could play the daily. If you had multiple accounts, you could play the daily twice a day or whatever. But
So there isn't the concept of a seed like Minecraft then.
it has a seed. It's just not exposed to you.
Oh, okay. No, well, that's what I mean. Like for sort of the general audience, like if I just played a level and I wanted you to play that level, that's
Yeah, it's
impossible
it's impossible unless it's the daily.
unless it's a daily. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah, the version we're playing is actually an updated version from the 2012 because I believe on when he did the Windows release, which was a little bit later, the XBLA release was first, and then I think the next year was the Windows release. Um, some of his indie friends were talking to him and saying, this needs something else. I can't remember who it was. I'll look it up and maybe I'm pretty sure I know who it was. And I can't remember his name. But said, what this needs is like a way to play against your friends, but
Right.
have the same
A
version.
social aspect.
Exactly. And so that's where the daily Spelunky run was born. But he
Hmm.
had to rewrite all the algorithms to be
Right.
order independent, right? So determinative, right? So because if you open a chest, in the original version, he would just roll on a table when you open the chest to see what was in it. So if you
Mm.
didn't open the chest in the same order as your buddy, then the random number generator would be out of whack, right? Because I picked a random number at that point, and you picked a different random number, and now they don't match. So
Interesting.
he had to rewrite his whole algorithm to make that all.
To have that be possible. To
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point because the concept of it's really interesting that colleague had suggested something like that was missing because it's a very solitary endeavor. Like you and I can talk about fun and funny moments that happen to us, but we're having to describe it verbally and put our pieces in our minds together because we'll never actually see it again.
Right.
It's like theater in that way, I guess, as a hitting close to home concept, which is one of the things I love about theater as well. Like you only see
Yes.
that
There's
show
only
is
that
that no
show.
one
Yep.
else is going to see that show, but you are seeing it with an audience, right? So you have some shared. But like the concept of a daily, like you can then say, "Oh, hey, what happened to you when this happened?" We both played the daily. That wasn't possible before, but now
Right.
it is, which
Right.
is really kind of a nice twist on things because games can be so social, even if they're single player games. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, it's funny because the demanding attention concept. Well, first of all, I want to say like the idea, however he came about it, and I know there's a book out there of throwing out a complete whole part of what platformers are and just throwing it out, and that's
Yeah.
a consistent level, is like very brave,
Yeah. Yeah.
and like and risky, I guess I would say. Um, but the concept, it kind of makes me not worried too. You know what I mean? To your point, like when you bounced off of it originally, to your point of like, oh, I want to master the level I just failed. There's this letting go concept of like, nope, you just got to let it go. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
that's not the game. The game is about the systems and the rules and the mastering of being ready for anything. And I was, as you were talking about this concept of demanding your total attention, I think it's kind of dawning on me is that's one of the reasons that I love and hate playing multiplayer games, especially like pretty competitive action games like Hunt or something is one of my favorites. But the thing is I can't play it all the time. I love, but they're so demanding for that same reason because you don't know what the other players are going to do,
Right. Right.
and there's this element of really like, you really got to stay on your toes if you want to succeed. Um, Overwatch or whatever, like there's plenty of good examples. But
Yeah. So and the reason why this appeals to me and those don't, I think, is because my skill ceiling, like I can reach a skill ceiling with Spelunky where I'm good enough for the game, but
yeah,
I'll never reach a skill ceiling in the multiplayer
right.
in any multiplayer environment anymore, where it's like, oh, I'll be good enough to go up against, you know, kids who play it all day, right? It's like
Right. Your
uh,
opponent is dictating the skill
my
ceiling.
exactly
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And here it's the game has a difficult but ultimately approachable, and like of course I don't beat it every day, but I do pretty well every day, and even today I had a recovery, whereas like I haven't played it in 10 days, and I had one of those moments where I like fell into a place where I was in a lot of danger and got out of it immediately just on kind of muscle memory. And it's like I just have that level of skill as like, oh no,
Yeah.
don't do that, and I've already moved out of it by the time I realize. It's like I'm telling myself the story of like that I have to get out of this danger. My hands have already done it. But that's not the case with somebody who is, good with a sniper rifle and I didn't see them and now I'm dead, kind of
Yeah,
thing.
no, it's fair. It's fair. The one in multiplayer's defense, the one thing that I will say is that with, you know, relatively good matchmaking with a big enough player pool, the
Right,
skill
sure,
ceiling
yeah,
should be
yeah,
better. Yeah, yeah.
right.
If it's completely random matchmaking, then yeah, you're gonna get the people who are way, way better than you. But ideally, you're
Yeah, I
matched
mean,
with people that are similarly
you also
skilled.
need to start the game when other people are starting the game, right? Which is one of the real problems with the sort of the live
Yeah,
service games that have been around a while is like, they have an experienced player pool, but they don't have a lot of new blood. So when you're coming in,
it's very
as a
punishing.
starting
Yeah, it can be
player, it's
punishing.
like,
Yeah.
oh my God, it's like, and it's why games like Fortnite have you playing against bots, for the first handful of games, and then they
Halo
throw
does
you
that too.
in. Yeah,
hmm
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Halo was embracing that too. Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, we're not talking about it in detail, but our game allows you to do some different things.
That's very true.
I'll say Brett has even won a game before.
Yeah,
So
uh-huh.
it's just like
True, it's true.
for a multiplayer game. Yeah. Anyway.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, very surprising to me. Yeah, and I think I'm just really flabbergasted at the concept that and the other, I guess, related to the sort of embrace that the level will always change.
Yeah.
I guess we can segue to embrace the concept that the game is out to kill you.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And that's kind of like also part of the point. So like that's why I brought up Souls earlier. It's like, and obviously, grinding on a boss or whatever, like trying to learn the boss, over my time with the Souls games and Hollow Knight and stuff, it's like there's this admission and kind of you give in to the concept that okay, I'm about to start trying to take this boss down. And with certain bosses, maybe you've gotten your skill level up to a point where you can do it in maybe one try it, or you do it in just a few because you're that good. And I do have those occasionally now, but most of the time you're like, okay, I know what this is. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to die over and over again as I'm learning.
Butt
You know,
explosion, butt explosion.
yeah. Right, right. I forgot about that. Yeah. And I will be talking to myself the whole time. So that embracing of, no, this is just what it is,
Yeah.
and kind of deprogramming yourself, reprogramming yourself away from this concept, like you said, when you bounced off of the game of like, no, I want to master this level. It's like, no, that's not the point.
Yeah.
We're even going to take that away from you. You're just going to die a lot until you get better,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
till you at least learn, like you said, learn the rules enough to recover or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what makes it different, although you can, as people have been joking about on the Discord lately, like you see Dark Souls rather in everything, and there's a degree to which you're like, oh yeah, sure, you can see Dark Souls in it, but it's more like, sure, it's difficulty and you can overcome it in this case, but it's not like Dark Souls, right? In that way, I mean, you are gonna like get a bunch of skills and be able to do them, but it's like the level is all the level is fixed in Dark Souls, so
No, no, no. Yeah,
right,
not in that
and
way.
like where the enemies
No,
are placed, and like here, of course, where the what the enemies do, like their behaviors are very consistent, right? Like always, a skeleton that animates is going to turn this way, it's going to walk until it falls or hits a wall or whatever, or the bat is going to fly towards you and will fly up and down to reach your level. If it can't get to, it'll, there's all these like behaviors in the enemies here, they're just sort of similar to the tells, but they're a lot simpler, than something 3D, obviously, because
yeah,
it's
yeah,
2D.
and I definitely didn't mean like one for one. It's more of it, I think it's more of the learning. Learning the game is, mm, I guess it's learning the rules in the game versus surviving it, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
right,
And so
right.
so one the reason I'm bringing it up for Spelunky specifically is like my instinct for games like this is often like for a while, obviously I'm still early in the game, but for the first, hours or whatever, I was frustrated how little life you have.
Yeah,
And maybe there's some abilities that you get at some point that changes, I don't know, but you can see why it is that way, right? It's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
no, this is a gate for you to be better and learn, and learn the game more. Because if you were able to, for instance, it's not a game about surviving through the level. You know what I mean? Where it's
Yeah.
like, okay, if I go find this heart, I can get another heart and then I can just squeak by. No, you actually have to play at a level to be able to confidently get through, if you're playing from the beginning, apparently 16 levels, and that sounds impossible to me right now.
Yeah.
Um, but if you had a
Yeah.
way
It
to
was
get
it was
consistently get
crazy how excited I was when I finally got a particular. There's some special items in the game. We'll talk about them next week to give you some more time to discover them on your own. But there's this item that when you get it, it sort of appears above your head and then drops onto the character. And I was so excited because this was the first time I ever did this, and it happens in front of a door that you're going to exit the level through. I'm trying to be as vague as possible.
I mean, it's
Uh,
a spider.
nope. So this thing's going to drop on your head, and you're gonna hit the right button to go through the right shoulder to go through this door. And I was so excited that I had gotten to this point for the first time ever, that I was just like jamming on the button in excitement. And I went through the door, and the thing didn't drop on my head because I went through the door before it fell. And I was just like, it's a thing you want. It's not going to hurt you. It's a thing
Oh,
you
I thought it was
want.
an enemy. I
No,
was like, oh,
no.
what? Yeah.
It's a thing you want
Oh,
really
yeah.
badly. It was the first time I ever got it. And I walked right away from it because I was just like, "Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god!" I was so
And
excited.
and
And
he knew
I just didn't have the
exactly.
vision. He knew
He
that
knew
would.
what he was.
And
He
I
knew what he was
told
doing.
Andy Nealon, who is the person who really I got to understand the game a lot better because I would watch him play it. I was playing it every day, but I would watch him play it as well. He would stream it every day. Andy Nealon is he teaches game design. I think at UCLA or USC, I can't remember now, but he's out in California somewhere. Anyway, I was watching him play, and almost every day. And I told him when that happened to me, he's like, "That is so classic. That is classic Spelunky." Is that Derek knew somebody was going to have this experience because like I was saying with the whip or whatever, like there's a
Yeah,
lot
the
of things
whip.
that have some wind up, and they just
Yeah.
have there's just a little bit of time, and you have to acknowledge and accept that time is there. Like you can't rush it. And I was rushing it, and I just was like, it was such a funny thing. It's like, I mean, because essentially that run was over at that point. It's like, oh man, I finally got to the special thing, and then I didn't get it because I'm so excited to get it. Oh, it's so funny. Oh
Yeah.
god, it was one of those moments in games that I can think about it, and I'm just like, I'm laughing inside because it's like when I fail at Spelunky, I'm never mad.
Yeah.
I'm almost like, I mean, I might be mad at myself, like, oh my god, I knew that was there. Why did I do that? Like, what is wrong with you? Just kind of frustrated at myself. But in general, I'm laughing because it is like also kind of got that Far Cry 2, you know, chaos machine thing
Oh, for
going.
sure. There's the chain reaction aspect of it.
Oh, it's so good.
With the whatever
The
light physics that it
tikis
has or
and yeah,
something.
oh,
Yeah.
so good. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and not to continue to defend my Souls references, but
Okay, yeah, keep
and
going.
jokes aside, but I think for me, and I can imagine. I haven't been on the Discord in a couple of days, but I can imagine the trolling there. But for me, I think Dark Souls, because I talked about Kaon's Mega Man runs as
Yeah.
another example. I think it's in this example, I'm using the bosses in Dark Souls as the example, not necessarily the game at
Oh,
large.
right. Okay. Sure.
It's more of like, the bosses are this thing that has rules, but there's unpredictability as well, right? Where you're
Mm.
like, you come in, you have to really, to beat a boss, you have to know what they're going to do, but they're not going to ever do it in the same order, right? You have to really be good enough to, and have the muscle memory to beat them once you know their patterns and stuff. But I think about this a lot because I do bring it up so much since we played Dark Souls. And I think what it has become, because I'm playing two of them at once right now, it's been on my mind a lot. The I'm giving Dark Souls too much credit, the Souls games too much credit for things like this. But for me, it's become a modern shorthand for one of the cornerstones, I think, of game design in general, from the beginning, right? Before Dark Souls ever existed, this concept of knowledge, pattern recognition, challenge, mastery, fun, of course, failure or whatever it is. And that's Dark Souls have their specific version, but I think what they've done such a great job of, and what Spelunky does such a great job of, is presenting the player with their version of that formula, which
Mm-hmm.
every good game should have, I think, in some way. Even a puzzle game, it can be a different kind of that, but it's learning, because it's an interactive medium, so you're learning these sorts of, you're gaining knowledge of some kind, and then you're employing that knowledge because you have the controller. um, so it's too reductive, but I think for me, I jump to Dark Souls so much now because it's my easy way to say, no, that's what you should be doing.
Mm.
Those games are too hard for a lot of people, and they go too far, and that's their version. But at the end of the day, Mario has some Dark Souls in it. Zelda has some Dark Souls in it. Like those concepts are not new. Anyway, I could
Yeah.
go on and on.
Yeah. Oh, and you have. Somebody
I
was
love the
like,
Ghost,
"Oh,
by the way.
Cave Story in 2004 somehow has Dark Souls in it, huh?"
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Well, that's my point. Is
Yeah,
that
I know.
Dark Souls doesn't
It's
own
like,
it.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
they just have packaged it in a modern way that people are eating up,
Yeah,
like that. Especially the tradition, like that sort of like quote unquote traditional gamer. I was talking to a friend who's really obsessed. I think he said he's played Elden Ring like 7 times,
oh my god.
and Bloodborne like maybe 10. So he's like obsessed with them. But I was talking to him about it, and you know, it's that like there's that sort of challenge of the video game at that level has always been there.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a and level 1 Mario. That's sort of like still the distilled down version of that. So I think, yeah, Dark Souls owes a lot to a lot of other games. Is my point.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure. Um, yeah, you were about to say the Ghost, and
yeah,
the Ghost. So the Ghost is a funny thing because the Ghost for me, like I never get killed by the Ghost anymore. In fact, I
right.
can be like, oh, the Ghost is here. I know the Ghost so well. Like I can know if I'm not like if I don't have the landscape to avoid the ghost, so I'll just leave, once the ghost appears. But often it's like, oh, there's actually a thing I want to go. Like there's a store, for example, and I didn't have enough money to buy the stuff from the store, so I'm going to go back to the store. Oh, and actually, there's the pug is up there somewhere. I want to make sure I pick that up and bring it to the exit. Um, so I'm going to go and backtrack to that. Meanwhile, the ghost is chasing me everywhere, and
I see.
and I've just like it's just I know how much space you need to avoid the ghost. But it's funny. One of the things they've changed in Spelunky 2, because of course, players who've played a lot of Spelunky aren't afraid of ghosts anymore. He made the
Oh
ghost
no.
very fast. So the ghost
Yeah.
appears, you are in trouble, and like you've got to get to
Interesting.
the exit immediately. I understand he changed the physics a little bit. I mentioned Andy Nealon already. He talked about it. He's like, yeah, I like the physics in Spelunky 2 more, and he said, but it does mess with my
Mm,
Spelunky play, because it's two very similar games, but the physics are just different enough. And I said, oh, well, I'm not going to be playing Spelunky 2 for a while then. So I have not.
right.
That's why I've never moved to Spelunky 2, is because I feel like I still am getting more out of Spelunky, and if I were like, beating the daily, 6 days out of 7 or something like that, I'd probably be like, okay, you know what? I guess now I'm good enough at this. It's time to move on. But I don't, right? I've gotten the turkey once. So, in however many hours of play it's a lot. And which is, for those who don't know, is 3 days of doing the daily Spelunky run in a row is a turkey. So yeah, so that's there's also a turkey in Spelunky too, an actual turkey that you can ride. And I think
Amazing.
you can also fry it and turn it into a roast turkey, and then you can eat it for health. Um,
Wow.
I've watched some Spelunky 2, but not enough because I want to. Someday I'll get to it and I'll puzzle out the Spelunky 2. I'm sure it has a mystery similar to Spelunky 1, which is a tantalizing draw. So
Hmm.
maybe we'll talk more about it next time because it's unlikely that you'll find it on your own. I didn't. I found parts of it on my own, but I didn't really understand what I was seeing, and then I started watching Andy play it. And,
Interesting.
I
Cool.
should say
Cool.
Andy also had a podcast. Still, I think, has a podcast called it was originally called the Spelunky Show, but now it's called the Eggplant Show, and it's for these kind of roguelites.
Hmm.
Then they discuss them, and I think it was actually one of his co-hosts. That's why that came up with the idea to do the daily, the daily Spelunky seed.
That's great.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome. So is a daily one level or multiple levels, or how long is it?
it's a run. It's a daily run.
Oh, so for all 16
Yeah, well, 20, but yeah,
or 20, right? Because of
yeah,
oh,
the secret stuff.
wow,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah, the
Okay,
20 levels. Yeah, and I
that's
consistently get very deep into that,
yeah,
and it
yeah,
takes me. I mean, occasionally, like I said, you'll have a day where you're just like, "Yep, just not there today. Just I did not have the focus, and I died." I've died on the first level of the mines. It's just
yeah.
sometimes that happens, and you're just like, "Oh, yeah, just really didn't come to it in the right mindset today." Oh well, or didn't kind of look ahead and just drop down onto some spikes, just stupidly, and just like, oh, okay, well, that happened. I guess we're done for today. But I sometimes, I mean, there's not as many people playing it, obviously, but I do sometimes place in the top 10 um, for the Spelunky daily.
And you only get one try.
Yeah, one try.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
There's a cheat in the game as well. There's a duplication bug, so like you can tell the people who use the duplication cheat because they've got the score is like 10 times what you get. You get points for the gold or the gems or whatever, and there are people who have like 10 or 100 times what your score is, and you're like, well, they're using a duplication bug to get that score because there's not that much money in the game. It's like, oh,
Interesting.
my score is 325,000, theirs is 8 million. It's like there's no way to get 8 million without the bug is there, they use it, it's fine. But so I know
Right.
I'll never be number one, but it is very fun.
Well, that's not fair, but yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. I could go figure out what the bug is and learn how to do it, and I just don't care. So,
Yeah.
but I think
Yeah, it's interesting. I've felt not as a little bit of a segue maybe, but I felt a tension. I think because I wanted. So I don't know. Maybe we talk about this next time or not, but we can maybe introduce it because you were saying in pre-show, you're asking how far I got, and I was confused about Tunnel Man and how
right.
that worked, and I did eventually unlock through a lot of deaths, a lot of dying, the shortcut to the jungle. And then you said, well, maybe you don't want to use the shortcut. And I was like, why wouldn't I want to use the shortcut? You know, and, and it's sort of like, and then we talked about this, as a partner topic to that, we talked about the store a little bit, and that I think I hadn't realized how abilities are bought and how important the store is and how you are trying to sort of like quote unquote level yourself up over the run. And I definitely like we
Yeah,
always
and
joke.
the crates, right? So, there's a
Oh,
lot of the crates and the money, right, to buy stuff in the stores besides, right? So,
yeah, right.
um, so even if you were gonna get, I mean, the level skipping. So, for example, the level skipping isn't available in the daily. There's no way
Right.
you can't talk to the tunnel man and skip ahead in the daily. You just start at the beginning.
Yeah.
So that's the quote unquote the real game, right? The tunnel man is there in case you want to kind of, when you haven't made it all the way to the first boss, ever, like, and you want to just start further in to like learn later sections because they feel different. Like the challenges are a little different. The
So
the
almost
the
like
mobs,
ways to practice.
yeah, they're basically a way to practice without expecting that you're going to go to the end. Um,
Oh,
it's more
okay.
like,
Yeah.
okay, you know what? I need to practice the jungle because I'm bad at the jungle. for whatever reason, and
Oh,
so it's
wow.
like I want to, or the caves. The caves are the hardest. They're the ones after the jungle. I think they're the hardest. Um, so I want to practice practice the ice caves because they are, um, they have a certain style of challenge that is just very different. However, you're not going to have had 8 levels of stores and other random drops, crates and things like that, where you could get more ropes or more bombs or more whatever. You're just going to start at the ice caves with nothing, and it's like, I don't know that that helps you. um,
Yeah.
because the ice caves, have a lot of areas where you can fall long distances or even into the infinite depths and die because you never hit the ground. That kind of death is like, and I fell forever. Um, I think is the note that you get for that one. I never hit the ground or something like that. It's a bottomless pit. But so I'm not sure it's like very helpful to do that. And then in order to get to the secret levels, you do actually have to go to every section. So you have to start in the mines, you have to go to the jungle, you have to go, et cetera, et cetera. Um,
Wow.
so yeah, that's a whole hidden aspect that we'll talk about in the future.
Yeah, so I mean, and then it's like I think it's playing upon expectations then, right? Because
Yeah,
then the shortcuts are sort of in a way red herrings. Like he's playing against expectations, like we've talked about with probably I think every indie game we've played, right? It's
yeah.
like how do you subvert?
Well, and Mario had those shortcuts, right? And the expectation is, oh, the shortcut is my way to get to the end
That's
faster.
what I mean. Yeah,
Yeah,
that it's like, oh, I want to unlock that. I mean, they're sort of incentivized in a way, but it's a red herring in a way. Like we joke and it's sort of like not a term that we like very much, but so we don't say it very often, we don't mean it very often, but it's sort of like the concept of you're playing it wrong.
yeah,
You know, it's like the game has so far presented me with things that I've made assumptions based on other games, but it's actually subverting those expectations in a way, and I am playing it wrong because as an example, not only did I want to get the shortcut so I could just skip the mines, and then you're like, well, what if you don't want to do that? What if you maybe shouldn't do that? And I was like, what do you mean? Not
yeah,
only that, but when I play every level that I play, I try to get through it as quickly as possible. Like
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't collect hardly anything. I'm just like
yeah. That's
I'm
funny.
just going through it. So it's like I'm like,
Yeah,
no, I'm
how
not.
you and I play obviously are very different.
But to your
Yeah,
point though, it's
yeah,
like I can see now the structure of the game. Well, I guess I'll say the power curve of the game. I mean, obviously, for the people who are really, really good at the game, I'm sure there is that challenge of I'm going to play with, like a Souls level 1 kind of thing. It's like I'm going to play with no abilities and no weapons, and
yeah,
I'm still going to beat it. Like I'm really that good. But it doesn't seem like it's balanced that way. It's not for the typical player should be buying things and should be collecting things. It seems like.
yeah.
So I'm kind of
There
like
is there is an
giving myself.
achievement in the game for a speed run type of thing where you spend like between maybe less than 10 seconds per level. I don't know what it works out to, but something like that, where you actually do want to go as quickly as possible
Sure.
and get nothing. But that's really just
No, but
another way
that's
to play the game. That's
right.
just a, hey, can you do this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there's a way to beat the boss. So beating that boss that's at the end of the 16th level, 4-4, or is it after 4-4? I guess it's 4-4. You It's easier with lots of bombs. And but you can do it without any bombs. So there is a way to do it without any bombs at all, which is kind of cool. I mean, it's not easy, but you can do it. It's quite hard, but it's possible. And if you're doing this achievement, you're not going to have a lot of bombs by the time you get there. You
Right.
might have enough to make it a little easier on yourself to do the thing, to kill that boss. But you're yeah, it's going to be tricky. So you're going to probably have to resort to this trick. Um, I'm trying to be vague about that too. You'll
Mhm.
probably figure out what that trick is if you get to that point. That's Olmec is the name of that boss.
What is it? All rocks?
Yeah, it's all
Rocks?
rocks.
All rocks?
It's rocks all rock.
Roxel.
Right.
All rock
All
solid.
rock. Yeah.
Rock. A callback. Wow.
Yep.
um, yeah. So yeah, I mean, Hollow Knight has speedrun achievements as well that are just about playing in a
Yeah.
different way. So
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah, and it's not meant to. Yeah,
Yeah.
you
No,
definitely
that's
like.
what
So I am typically like trying to pick up all the stuff in a level.
yeah. Wow. Okay. I'm
Sometimes making
definitely.
decisions as I go, like, is it worth it? I mean, and often for me it is to like bomb a wall to get to an area where there are some crates because I might get more bombs. Like I might spend one bomb and get three more, because they typically come in the little bags of three, and that's a good trade. And I want to do that if I can. Um, so I will, but if I don't have many bombs left, I might not do that, even though the reward might be, so I'm making those decisions, but I
So
am like,
bombs are important, pretty valuable, huh?
they are, I mean, and um they're critical to the sort of hidden path of the game. So you have to have them, but they're useful for Olmec no matter what, but there's other stuff.
Yeah. Huh.
So yeah,
Yeah. So
definitely
I'm definitely playing
teasing.
differently.
Yeah. Well,
But
and I played differently too. Like when I first, I was like, "Why am I picking up any of this money?" Oh, I guess to use the store. So you sort of like you learn over time. Oh, I need to do this because I'm going to want more. I'm going to want
yeah.
more bombs to do this, and then but then once you've done all that, you're like, "Oh, but what does this do?" And you figure that, and you're like, "Oh no, there's something else here." And you just sort of like start uncovering more and more the more you play. There's way more here than you're seeing even here at the beginning. And so I end up like, it takes me, if I have a successful run, it takes me about 40 minutes to play the whole run. So that's, 2 minutes per level, and the limit is 2.5, so I am, before the ghost appears. So I'm spending, almost, the whole
Yeah. You
time in each
stay in
level.
there.
Yeah.
Mm.
So
Yeah. Because my logic was so many things can kill me if I just get out of here so
you're
quickly
right.
as I
Yeah. Yeah.
can.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if I go exploring for like loot or something, or even like the idol or saving somebody, I'm like, no, that's too dangerous. I got to get out of here. Good
Right.
luck, everybody. I'm
Right.
out.
Right.
So yeah, it's such a funny. Again, it's like pushes against those expectations of what you think. Like again, Mario is like, yes, you can get power ups and stuff, but because of the reset, mostly you're just getting to the end.
Yeah.
It's like, how can I get to the end? You don't need the power ups to make it easier, but it's not really necessary.
Yeah, and there's not a
So
lot of them, right?
yeah,
There's
there's not a lot
basically,
of them. Yeah.
yeah. And here there's
So
lots of different things that you might buy, and we can talk a little bit
yeah,
about
one
maybe
time.
the inventory, because you start off with 4 bombs and 4 ropes, and those are kind of your bread and butter right there. Those are the 2 key items you need to have, for various challenges that come along. But you also have items that you can just buy, and they just equip, and they're just now with you forever. They basically just give you some ability, and even though those might look like they occupy, quote unquote, a slot, they really don't. Like there's a shoe that has spikes on the bottom of it. There's a which, if you jump on an enemy's head, there's certain enemies that only go unconscious when you drop, you hit them the first
Oh
time,
yeah, like the
but the
cavemen.
spikes will kill the cavemen right on the first hop.
Oh,
Then they have a use later as well. And then there's the spring shoes that let you jump 3 instead of 2.
mm.
And you can have both of those shoes at the same time. They're not really a shoe. They're an ability that you now have.
Ability. Yeah.
Yeah. So, or maybe they're combined into one boot, but you see them separate. There's the compass, which will show you the direction of the exit. If it's off screen,
Right. I did
it'll,
get that once. Yeah.
yeah. There's sunglasses, which I believe, reveal diamonds under the surface. So in stone areas in the mines, you can see if there are gems.
Also, let you go into first person view. That's
No,
that's
that's the best joke. I'm like, I hope not.
two sunglasses. Two sunglasses in the same year.
The
I
same
mean,
year, yeah. Yeah, so they have that ability. Oh, and I think they help. Have you hit a dark level yet?
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, I
Yeah,
didn't
it's wild.
anticipate
I
such
think the
a
sunglasses give you slightly better visibility um in the dark levels. Like
yeah,
not a
that
lot, but slightly.
that was a big surprise because I didn't realize they would have so many, you know, level changes like that, but and that the, you know, like the torch, carrying the torch around, and yeah.
Have you found an undead level in the jungle yet?
No,
Okay. Yeah, that's all
Spider
undead.
level, I think, is a thing
Yeah,
in
yeah,
the
there's one that
mines.
the spiders and the snake pit. It'll say I hear snakes.
Oh, I just had started that one last night before I
Yes.
stopped
Yeah,
playing. Yeah,
there's a place where he'll do that too. So, yeah, so there's all of those sorts of things. But anyway, to finish out the inventory, I'm trying to think of what other things. There's a lot of things I don't often. Oh, the glove, the climbing glove,
yeah.
lets you climb up things.
There's also a
The,
mitt, like a baseball mitt.
and the mitt, yeah, that lets you throw bombs and other items in a straight line.
Yeah,
So if you
I
throw a
did get
bomb,
that.
normally just go and kind of bounce and stop. But with that, you can throw it a distance. There's the if you kill one of the big spiders, they drop a pot of glue. You can also buy that pot of glue sometimes, and that makes your bombs sticky bombs. So if you throw them against something, they will stick.
Whoa.
And let's see, trying to think of. Oh, and then other things that do have slots are the jetpack and the pack. And then there are a variety of handheld items: the pick, the shotgun, the ice gun. There's a plasma gun that doesn't appear in the daily, so I know I haven't seen that in years, but it can show up in the adventure. That's a very, very powerful gun. It also knocks you back quite a ways, so be careful. There's the glue gun, and there's
There's a
like a
web gun.
yeah, the web
Yeah.
gun is what I meant.
Yeah.
And there's a teleportation device which teleports you the direction you're looking a certain number of squares, um,
Wow.
which is very dangerous because you can just teleport out of the level. Oh, you're dead. You teleported into solid rock. Sorry.
Oh,
It doesn't teleport you to a safe space. It tells you teleports you to
it
a
just
certain
does.
space.
They don't care.
Yeah, no, you just tell. Oh, you died. Sorry.
I can't wait to read the entry for that.
Yeah.
Whatever he says. Yeah.
So I
Uh,
definitely
that
want. I mean, so there are certain things I never pick up. I never pick up the web gun. I never pick up the
there's a
I
machete too.
and the machete. I forgot and the boomerang. So yeah, there's things that I don't pick up very often. Like I'll want to pick in the mines if I can find one for the jungle. Again, we'll talk about why in a future episode. And then yeah, the climbing glove is always good. I always like to have the jetpack or the cape. Those are always good. The glove is good, but you can live without it. The let's see what else.
What's the cape do? Is it like a
The
Tanuki cape?
cape lets you float
Glide.
down instead. Yeah, it lets you glide. You can't climb with it, but you can fall slower.
Yeah.
And so that means you can cross wider distances. Um, Sometimes in the jungle, there's a section with like vines that you can jump across the vines one by one, and there might be monkeys up there, and
Oh
that
yeah,
kind of
those
thing.
vines are a nightmare. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's a pain, but you can usually jump across that whole area and glide with the cape and jump to the other side. Is one use for them, and they're also useful in the ice caves, which will be after. Um, yeah, so I mean, I never use the teleport thing. Like if I get it out of a crate, I don't even pick it up, even if I don't have anything else. I never use the web gun. I never even pick that up. I don't normally pick up the ice, the freeze ray, except in special circumstances. Uh,
I love that you just can go through them all and
yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything
know 'em
else that
so
I
well.
like, never pick
I'm
up or always pick
I
up.
even the what few I've seen in my runs, I don't think I've seen a lot of them, but not all the ones you mentioned. I'm still very impressed with how many they are and how big of an impact they
Yeah,
have. I mean, it's
yeah,
just such a you know systemic and sandboxy kind of game. It's really cool.
There's
Like you're
also
saying,
there's also
some
an
of
item
these.
I've never gotten,
Oh,
which is the eggplant.
oh,
And there is I don't even know how to get the eggplant. And then there's a special run with the eggplant, um, which is like taking the eggplant all the way through the 20th level.
oh,
It's
like the lawn gnome in Half-Life 2.
yeah, I guess I don't know where that I don't remember where that came from. And then there's a way to get a ball and chain around your leg. Um,
To make it harder.
to make it harder. I don't want to tell you how because you might come across it and it's very funny the first time it happens to you and you're like, oh no, and it does make it very difficult. You will almost certainly die when that happens. I don't try to get that, but there's also like that's another special run. I think
Achievement. Yeah.
yeah, I mean I don't think it's an achievement. I think it's just something that players decided was something. Like the first person to figure out how to get an eggplant to the end of the game was like, how did you figure that out? It's like one
Uh,
of those things, like it is possible, but you had to really understand the systems of the game in order to do it. And I believe it also involves the ball and chain to do that. And you
wow.
have to have a lucky seed, a seed that actually makes it possible to get these things, or makes it possible to get the eggplant. So there was somebody who figured out, who had a theory about how it would be possible to do this, and figured it out, and was like the first person to ever do it. Other people have achieved it as well, I believe. So there's a lot of depth there, I guess is my point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Wow. Yeah. It's impressive.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
it really is.
and daunting. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I'm overwhelmed at this
yeah,
point.
yeah.
But yeah, it's super, super impressive so far. And I feel bad for not having played it by now, but yeah, until
Yes,
now.
that's fine. I get it. You're not a platformer guy.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's a fascinating game. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
And I
It is.
can,
It's a really good game, and I do recommend reading the book, because it's Derek Hughes wrote a book, and he kind of talks about, he developed the initial version largely on the TIG source, which is uh the Independent Game Source Forum, I think is what TIG, the Independent Game Source Forum, I think that's what it stands for. But he developed it kind of in public, um but he's also very thoughtful about like why he made the decisions that he did, and like what motivated him to make some of the decisions he did, like the big ones that we've already talked about in this episode. um and how different things came about, and then some of these sort of special things as well that we'll talk about next week, are
okay.
also explored in there. So if you ever have a chance, I know you're not a read a book every week kind of guy, but I think you would find that one really interesting.
All right. I
All right.
will endeavor to do so.
Okay. Well, let's put a pin in it there. You can learn by death some more over the coming week, and we'll see how far you get.
Between that and playing Souls games at the same time,
Yeah.
I'm doing
What are the Souls games you're playing?
lot of dying. I'm playing the Demon Souls remastered
Oh, right, right.
slowly. Yeah, that's kind of like my back burner, but primarily I'm almost done. I think with Dark Souls 2.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I'm on my
Awesome.
way to the king. So
Nice.
uh, yeah.
All right. Well, we love to get your reviews. We haven't had one in a minute. And if you are putting them other than in your Apple podcast app, I won't see them. So maybe let us know where they are, or just email them our way so we can read them here on the air. You can find us at devgameclub@gmail.com. We're on the web at devgameclub.com. And my co-host here, Twitch, is at twitch.tv/
Tim Longo Jr. with a JR at the end.
And
Talk
you,
about dying.
I was
I'm
going to
playing
say,
Outer Wilds.
you're dying on a loop in that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, as well as probably some environmental hazards. What have you done in there recently? I know you played last week while I was gone.
Yeah, I'm chipping away at the mystery. I think I might have happened upon a theory about how the game will end and what I have to do. but I don't know how to do it yet. So yeah, it's just I'm uncovering the mystery of the So I think last week Brittle Hollow was my focus.
Yes.
So that's a really cool. Every planet concept that they have in that game is just astounding.
Yeah, super cool.
And then the chat was talking while I was streaming about sort of like how simulated the game really is, because I think I was asking about what engine and like how much of this is smoke and mirrors and stuff, but it sounds like like the solar system and a lot of this stuff is really actually being simulated. So
yeah, cool. Well, you will be able to find that there. We also, as we mentioned on occasion, have a fan run Discord. There will be a link in the show notes. Our intro and outro music was written and performed by Kirk Hamilton, commissioned by friend of the cast, Aaron Evers, and our logo, that Discord, our merch store, all by Mark Garcia, as well as lots of funny little gifts and sorts of things. Have fun giving Olmec the drop this week, and good night.
Good night.